add the 3 to both sides. Square root both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus. So a while ago we talked about, when you have your answers for tangent, you either get a root 3, a root 3 over 3, or a 1. Positive or negative depending on which quadrant you're in. So we're not dealing with a 1, which would be the 45 of the quadrant. We're dealing with one of the 30s, either 30 or 60. And then I told you, well, you get root 3 or root 3 over 3. Which one is smaller? Root 3 over 3. And that actually goes with the smaller angle of 30 degrees. So when you see root 3, you should be thinking 60. But you're thinking where it's positive or negative. So it's going to be positive twice and negative twice. So our answers will be 60 degrees, 120 degrees, 240, and 300. Right? It'll be positive at the 60 and the 240, and it's negative root 3 at 120 and 300.
About 30.
We're supposed to solve this triangle, or this trig identity, trig function. So I'm going to bring the cosecant to this side. So I have secant of x times cosecant of x minus cosecant of x. So I get my trig function set equal to 0. I have two terms. What do they have in common? They both have a factor of cosecant, right? So I'm going to pull that out front. When I pull it away from this term, the only thing left is the factor of secant of x. And what's negative cosecant being divided by this cosecant? Negative 1. So earlier we had worked on doing some factoring or simplifying all this stuff. Now we have it set equal to 0. So I have two factors being multiplied together here, set equal to 0. So I can individually set them equal to 0. So I can do cosecant is equal to 0, and I can do secant of x minus 1 equal to 0. When is your cosecant equal to 0? And I'm just writing that dotted line. So some of you might not work with cosecant. You might just do 1 over sine. When is 1 over sine going to be equal to 0? Why? Well, remember earlier in the year we talked about how is a fraction equal to 0? A fraction is equal to 0 only when the numerator is 0 and the denominator is not 0. Well, this numerator is going to be 1 all the time, right? So it doesn't matter what you plug in down here. It'll never be equal to 0. Now we'll look at secant over here. Add the 1 to both sides. What you're really looking for is where is secant 1? Off to the side, you might think about this. When is 1 over the cosecant equal to 1? So when is 1 over the cosine equal to 1? When the cosine equals 1, okay. So when does the cosine equal 1? When is your x value 1 on that unit circle? Zero degrees. 0 degrees. Or 0 radians. 0. Now, if you're putting the 2 pi or the 360 on there, we have to be very careful. That interval at the beginning of the problem says do not use 360 or 2 pi. Right? Just once around.
So the answer